Hello and welcome to the Undercut Podcast and our preview of the Bahrain Grand Prix. I'm Jesse Billington, and joining me to set our sights on Sakir, I have my ever-able co-hosts Ellie-May Taylor and Thiemo Albus Daly. How are you both?
I'm pretty darn good. Thank you very much, Jesse. How about yourself?
I'm not doing too bad. A little bit tired. Had a busy weekend down in London. Well, I was up in Coventry doing race retro, and then down in London doing the London Classic Car Show, and including making some live appearances on stage in London, although not the West End. Nobody asked me to do Hairspray yet. Anyway, how about
I'm good, thank you. I did join Jesse at the London Classic Car Show as well, so I'm a bit tired from that as well. But other than that, good, thank you.
Excellent. So we know we're well, but we'll get down to hard tacks. There's been a busy news cycle, and there's a few bits I want to touch on, including someone who is not well at the moment in our news section that we handily call "What the hell has happened?" We're going to be looking at an Aston Martin driver, Lance Stroll, who's been knocked off his bicycle and won't be competing in Bahrain. Timo, I appreciate that in your current lawsuit you're not allowed to talk about this, but Ellie-May, thoughts?
First of all, I hope that he gets better soon. I don't wish ill health on anyone. But I do think it will be incredibly exciting that we get to see Felipe Drugovich drive an Aston Martin. I think he was slightly robbed at the fact that he hasn't got a seat this year. So it will be good to see what he can do. It looked very promising in testing. So I'm quite excited, really.
He's Drogovic has settled into the car very quickly and is looking pretty adept behind the wheel. I wouldn't say he's matching Alonso's pace, but it's not taking him a long time to get up there. Although saying that, I'm just flicking through Instagram at the moment. There's been an update from on Lance Stroll, and he appears to be okay-ish. He's not got like casts or braces on his hands, but again, if they've been recently broken or strained, it's going to take a long time before you get up to being able to put that force of an F1 car through your hands. Timo, how long do you think it'll be before Lance is back in the car?
I think he shouldn't come back until Baku, simply for the reason of let's give Felipe Drugovich 3 races as he's had testing, he's had simulator time, and we can capitalize on that. And then Stroll has lots of time to recover, use the simulator, yada, yada, yada. And Baku is somewhere where, if it is chaotic as it normally is, you can get a lot of points just by surviving. Alternatively, if we did see him back for Saudi Arabia, that is also a race where, as long as you survive it, you could find yourself further up the pecking order than you might normally be. And that will help him get some more confidence in the car, which he may not have got in practice and qualifying, as that would be his first Grand Prix.
You're also saying that Stroll should come back at Baku when he's retired the past 2 years there?
I didn't say he would survive. I just wanted to give Drogovic 3 races.
Yeah, a race of attrition is certainly what Baku and Saudi Arabia appear to be when they sort of crop up on the calendar, especially if you're a Pirelli tyre or a Ferrari engine. They seem to be quite hard on you there, both races. But yeah, that's the Lance Stroll story. We'll move on to, as we've already mentioned, testing. It's been sort of the most recent F1-y thing to have happened. Did anyone get to watch any of testing?
Yes.
Thoughts?
Although if your work, no.
Yeah, if you're Ellie May's employers, no, she didn't spend Thursday and Friday actually watching testing. Neither
No.
did I, for that matter.
I caught up on the highlights because after last year, even though we didn't really have a choice in the fact that we couldn't watch them, the YouTube highlights from F1 afterwards were plenty, plus a little bit of analysis from anyone over on F1 TV who does a very excellent job over there. So that was plenty for me to get a grip on everything that's going on, because I will keep going and just say my thoughts and take a whole here briefly because it's very short and late you to go on about it. But it's interesting, but none of it really matters because it's only testing. So I'll have more opinions on the pecking order after the Bahrain Grand Prix.
Oh, I appreciate that it is testing, and the teams, what they're doing is constantly never truly representative of what their cars can do because they're all running different fuel loads, different tire setups, different wing setups. I know Alpine ran at least 2 different wings across the weekend, so their times are going to be vastly different. But you also get these interesting interviews with drivers, with team principals, interviews amongst the paddock. You get to see a real sort of sense of where teams and drivers are at coming into this as well. There was the interesting story from Will Buxton that he spotted Lando Norris getting out of the car, walking back
If
to
it was
McLaren
Lance Stroll
garages.
punching his hand against a wall, no wonder his
No
his
wonder
hand's
it's
screwed.
yeah, no Lando punching a wall because the McLaren does not look like a healthy car to be trying to drive at the moment. They were speed taping that thing together on Thursday because it had started shaking apart one of its wheel brows. It You can
To add
start
on
to
to
get a
that as well,
sense.
it wasn't just that was the bad thing there. I mean, again, I know that the car is obviously not where they want it to be, but you are getting paid a lot of money as a driver to do things such as media duties. And as part of Ted's notebook on, I think, the final day of testing, he was trying to have a little bit of banter with Lando, and Lando just looked like you'd kicked his dog or something and just was not in the mood for it whatsoever. And I get that it's frustrating time, but it doesn't come across brilliantly when you're not some drivers can get away with it. Your Kimmys, your Fernandos, and these things. Your Bottas, maybe even with something, but other drivers, it doesn't come across great as part of personality. It just comes across as okay, fine, leave that in the garage. But it doesn't. It seems to really eaten away
Yeah,
at him
you're
there.
not that guy. It seems to have really dented Norris, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out for him as the season progresses. But yeah, it's an interesting time watching testing, but this thing is never truly representative. You can't take everything you sort of see in it for 100% gospel. So it means that
I am going to sound like a broken record because I've been banging on about it since I think Spa last year. But Aston Martin are turning a lot of heads. They looked very good. I mean, they have now got Fernando Alonso, and he can make any car really look. He can get the best out of most cars, but it has turned a lot of heads. Even Adrian Newey is sort of looking at that Aston Martin, thinking, "Ooh, they might be onto something here," especially as the aerodynamicist is what was Adrian Newey's protege at Red Bull. So I think it's Aston Martin have taken a lot of personnel from Red Bull and Mercedes, and they're starting to make it work. And I think it will be very interesting to see what they can do over this season.
Drive to Survive season 5, it's out. Have you all watched it, and what are your thoughts if you have?
I have binged all of it, and I did that on Friday because I didn't. So I had the time. I had the time, and in a nutshell, I thought it was better than the last two seasons in terms of there was slightly less bullshit. But also, to be perfectly honest, I did binge watch all of it in one go, so that may have some impact on the overall thoughts, as it was a bit of a blur. It still ignores a lot of stuff. Vettel was practically ignored aside from him retiring. Latifi, non-existent, poor sod. Red Bull drama from Brazil was interestingly left out, which is curious considering Netflix loving drama and making a lot out of stuff. And it is the worst season yet in terms of female representation because you had under 2% of screen time for women there, which Jenny Gale in particular, she had a couple of lines, and you know damn well she probably talked to them for at least an hour in total. So that was a bit poor, because especially when there were lots of people around. Caitlyn Jenner, though, did steal the show for me at the Miami Grand Prix, which if you've not seen it yet, I won't spoil it. But that was a particularly funny moment with Christian Horner, where he did look like you'd kicked one of his dogs and there was quite a priceless moment.
I don't recall what she said. It was probably because I was quite tired when I watched that episode, but I do recall Caitlyn Jenner being in it for like barely a frame or two and chatting away. But yeah, I'll side with you on. I'm working my way through it. I haven't quite finished it yet. It's more of the same. There's some interesting drama in it that seems to be relatively accurate to things that have happened, but there's also a lot of rehashed elements. The audio editing still infuriates me with some mismatched engines. Some of those car sounds aren't even from Formula One cars. They were recorded by Netflix audio engineers when it was the Porsche Super Cup support races. They're not F1 cars you're hearing at certain points in time, and it doesn't match up to what the car's actively doing on track. And like there's a shot of someone, I think it's one of the Alpines overtaking Daniel Ricciardo at France, and they play in the sound of a car going past at idle when clearly you're going down the back straight at France where you're wide open throttle in seventh. What are you doing? So yeah, that really winds me up. And there's some splicing together of clips at different weekends. In that same episode, we see Danny and Lando running through a car park to get up to the sort of pit area, and they're wearing rain jackets. And you're going, well, hang on, if you're as like deprived of any social life as I am, you'll know that the car park that they're in is the one at Spa, and obviously the jackets correlate with the fact that it was a bit damp and wet. And then all of a sudden they appear in France where it was 32 degrees and sunny, and the car park is miles away and badly located.
You do
So
need a social life.
I do, but the fact of the matter is that it's more of the same, but it's not as bad as it was. Am I enjoying it? Yes. Could it be better by a big margin? It's not worse than season 4, but yeah, you're pointing out the lack of female representation in screen time, especially in the fact that there's been such a huge leap forward in the amount of women working in Formula One. Crucially, this isn't a case of, oh, well, they're not there, so we can't give them representation. No, we know they're there now, and they're not getting representation. I appreciate not all of them will want to talk to Netflix, but you've got Jenny Gal there, a fantastic F1 and motorsports journalist, a journalist at the pinnacle of that job, and you're giving her a few lines over a few episodes.
Plus, you've got Laura
shocking.
Winter there, who's on F1 TV a lot now, and she was in a couple of shots, I think.
Yeah, you see her in the back of
questions,
shots,
but again, nowhere
yeah.
near as much as she should have been, considering her prominence in F1 TV, especially last year.
Yeah, she's not a prominent figure in it. She's not a talking head in the same way that Will Buxton and Laura and Jenny Gow are. And I think again they have missed a big trick there. Ellie-May, you haven't watched it yet.
I haven't watched a single episode yet. It's on the to-do list. I'll get it done once I've got all the graphics for the podcast done, the TikToks done. I've also got to watch Formula E.
Oh, do
To
that.
be fair, for
as
Formula
well.
E, you can skip the first 2/3. It's the last third that everyone's going crazy about, just to get saved on a bit of time there.
Yeah, watch qualifying. Qualifying was decent. I really like the Formula E qualifying at the moment. It seems to make sense, weirdly. And then watch the final third of the Grand Prix because it is fantastic.
Maybe I'll edit a graphic whilst watching some of the Formula E racing, and then when it gets good, I'll be like, "Ooh,
Yeah, then pay attention to the Formula E.
yes."
Yes. But yeah, there we are. There's our thoughts on the three main things that have been. If you ask the question, what the hell has happened recently? There's your answer. But more importantly, we need to look ahead to the Bahrain Grand Prix, and we'll open up with a question of what weather can we expect? And unsurprisingly, it's dry. It's going to be dry. It's set to be warmer than
Is
average.
Is it going to be hot?
It is. It's going to be warmer than average, 28 degrees Celsius through the day there on the Sunday, which will likely carry into the evening. How this is going to impact track temperatures, the surface temperature,
It'll go down slightly, I reckon.
I don't know. We'll wait and see. But whether that'll have an impact on tyre deg and how fast the track surface cools down will be important. And I've carried over this question from what I used to ask last season: is which on-track battles should we look out for? And it's tricky to call with no form apart from testing to go by. So Ferrari and Red Bull are likely going to be going toe to toe. Aston Martin could be ones to look out for, even Drugovich. And if McLaren look to be struggling, it could set the tone for their season to come. But at the moment, this is our first chance to nail down some front runners and suss out the midfield. Regardless, though, we're going to make some predictions. So as always, we love making our little predictions on this podcast. So, pole position.
Max Verstappen.
I'm going to be very boring and agree with Ellie-May and say Max Verstappen.
Interesting. I've gone for Carlos Sainz. Don't know why. I have a hunch. I got a vibe.
I wouldn't be against it.
Podiums though, we've all gone for something a little bit different here.
Yes. So Charles Leclerc win. Lewis Hamilton is second, sneaky man, and another sneaky man in Fernando Alonso.
So
because it's Bahrain, and I think reliability. I mean, we saw it with Red Bull last year. It might not happen with Red Bull, but it's kind of, you could have something where maybe there's an engine stall or something, and they fall down a few places. Some other people, they offer Romeo in particular, I don't trust their reliability issues are sorted. Helps Fernando on his way up there.
It's not unreasonable, although obviously Charles Leclerc, if he wins in Bahrain, he does not win the season. Whoever wins the first race of the season does not win the season. But
in that case, Max Verstappen's winning.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why I went for Max Verstappen with the win and Carlos Sainz second, Charles Leclerc third. I went for just anyone to win the season but Max, unfortunately. Anyway, was that your thinking with a Max win, or was it just simply the brutal pace from testing?
It was just the brutal pace from testing. So I've gone for a Max Verstappen win, Sergio Perez in second, because I think the Red Bulls are just going to dominate this year. And then Fernando Alonso in third.
Not unreasonable.
We're really putting a lot of hope in this Aston Martin, aren't we?
We are a
Yeah.
lot. It's going to be exciting though if it's good. Can you imagine having 4 teams dabbling around at that top end, snaffling for podium positions? Ferrari, Red Bull,
Could you-
Mercedes, Aston
It'll be
Martin.
nearly like Formula E.
Oh, yeah.
Could you imagine Fernando Alonso also fighting against Max Verstappen for a world championship? How spicy would that be?
Oh,
I tell you that Max would not get the same sportsmanship he got from Lewis in the press.
no.
Fernando would just be like, "Give me that deck chair. I want to hit him with it."
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I'd
Before
take
we-
Kelly Piquet now.
the winner gets Kelly. Anyway, we'll move on from that to fastest lap. Who do we think is setting the fastest lap around the Sakir circuit, which everyone was touting the other day is still being set by Pedro de la Rosa? And
It is.
Yeah, because they haven't really changed the layout, have they?
No. That'd be why.
2005?
Yeah, from the opening race we ever held, or was it 2004 we first went to Bahrain or something? It's weird that PDR still holds the fastest lap there.
Good fun though.
It's good
George
fun.
Russell for me.
Hmm.
He'll do what he did to begin with and be consistent, and then maybe have some gaps around him where he can just stick on some fresh tires before the end and go off and be a speedy boy.
I can see that happening. Ellie-May?
I've gone for Charles Leclerc. Unsure why, because those Ferraris are really struggling with tyre degradation. Maybe they will just put a set of softs on near the end and hope for the best. But I am now questioning why I put Charles Leclerc. I think because I didn't put a Ferrari in any of my other predictions and felt like they needed to be included.
Good. I've gone for Fernando Alonso. Again, it's this idea that something special's coming up that Aston Martin garage, and
Watch as they double DNF now, and we're all just screwed.
yeah, we're going to look like idiots. The dumbest podcast on F1 after potentially pit stop boys in the current lineup of WTF1, but they didn't hear me say that.
Because it's true anyway.
Right now, someone else said it. Wild prediction, Ellie-May.
I've gone for no team or DNF, which I think is going to be very surprising for the first race of the season.
But at the same time, when you think about it, a Haas driver that used to drive for them isn't there, so it's already gone up in possibility. And an Aston Martin driver that would usually do that isn't there. So if it were ever to happen at the first race of the year,
Yeah, but
there
last
is
year
an
that
obvious
happened.
contender for that.
But
And we
last
don't
year
have
that happened to
poor
Red
man.
Bulls.
We don't have poor man Latifi either, and everyone's going to have reliability. Well, no reliability issues.
Supposedly.
I now really want to change my prediction. Just no one finishes.
Even less finishes than the 1996 Monaco Grand Prix.
Oh, I've gone for a double McLaren DNF anyway, because as we've mentioned, their car does not look great. And yeah, no.
Low hopes for McLaren. I've gone for Aston Martin and Alpine to be in the top 5. Not going to specify which driver.
I'd
No,
say
not,
the Alpine is the only wild bit of that, to be honest.
What are you saying by top 5? Do you mean that there's going to be a driver from each in
driver
the top
from
5,
each
or are
in the
you
top
saying
5.
in the constructors? Okay.
Driver from each in the top
Or
5.
are you being really wild, Jess, and you saying both drivers from both teams will be in the top 5?
How
Ooh.
wild would that be?
If that's the championship battle this year, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't know
I
which
wouldn't
merch to
either.
buy, but I wouldn't be mad.
You just
Drogovic
go for
versus-
whatever merchandise Ellie-May doesn't buy, because chances are that team that would then not do well.
Well, the problem is I've got an Alpine Fernando Alonso hat, so I can support Alpine and I can support Aston Martin.
You can
It's like
So-
throwing a cat
perfectly
with
on
a
the
piece of
fence.
toast strapped to its back. You're just going to create a vacuum.
Yes.
Well, that's a strange dichotomy. Anyway, I think that's all we've really got to look forward to the Bahrain Grand Prix. We know so little about what's possibly going to happen, so might as well wrap it up. It's probably only taken about 25 minutes of your time out of your day, so thank you very much for listening. That's all we've got time for. And join us again soon when we'll be reviewing the Bahrain Grand Prix and indeed the feeder series action from across the weekend. Because, of course, both F2 and F3 come back this weekend. Thiemo, do you have anything you want to chuck in on this?
F3 is going to be bloody mental as per usual, and F2, I don't know yet. We've got an interesting grid there that I'm probably the least excited about, but that could also then potentially throw up some major sizzle.
There is a chance for some good action. I don't know if it's going to be wheels loose in the pit lane action, but
I do hope not.
I hope not, because it's unsafe, but it does make for some spicy action. Anyway, we'll be back reviewing all of that next week. And in that time, we should also have an exclusive interview with Alex Brundle on the horizon as well. So make sure you've liked, subscribed, and got notifications turned on to not miss anything, because we are busy bunnies from here on out until December, really. Oof. Thiemo, where can the people find you?
People can find me over on Is It First, On the Curbs, the Nitro Podcast, Paddock Sorority, and of course, ye old Instagram.
Lovely. Ellie-May, where can you be found?
You can be found.
It's been a long week already.
Oh dear. I can be found over on our Instagram page, where I am currently making the graphics. That and I can be.
You know what? I think you're just gonna have to wait a minute, Jesse, and wait for it to stop laughing,
No,
and then edit around.
We'll just sign her off with the giggles. She can be found on our Instagram page and doing
and TikTok.
Yeah, she got it out eventually.
Christ.
And of course, if you want more of me, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Jesse on Cars, on both of those, as well as at Classic Car Weekly, where I've got plenty of interesting classic car content for you across the weeks to come. You can also find the podcast on Twitter as well. We have all of our promotions and interesting chatty bits going out on Twitter. I think we're just the Undercut Podcast on Twitter. So give us a look, give us a follow, give us a like on whatever platform you find us. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again after Bahrain.